when Skyy came in, it was a big boost to draw those of us in this region closer. At the same time, it created an identity of being one in the region, much as we took ourselves as a geographical space. Culturally, we were not who we should be, but then Skyy identified with us and we identified with them. And interestingly, I in particular, because of the role that I play in society, traditional role, I was very, very circumspect about getting involved in the media or with the media. You always have to be above these things. But then you had somebody like me deciding to throw his weight, whatever weight I had behind this radio station to make sure that he stays on his feet. We were even looking for people who could come and make the citizens better, well-informed. I don't want to say just well-informed, but better and well-informed about the going-ons in this place. So I remember that I was reaching out to places like Cape Coast University to try to get some lecturers who may come on set, who would come and set based on the whole concept of the freedom of speech and give their analysis of events so that people may be better informed and make better decisions. Everything in this world depends on information. And so who gives you the information? Why does the person give you that information? What is his objective or what is his mission? Fine, Skyy may have thoughts about the profit margin, but at the same time too, there was within the profit margin was the positive thing of giving a mission, of having a mission, of raising the Western region concerns and so on and so forth, where the nation was concerned. So that was Skyy.
It's wonderful, and I know, Albert Mensah Opiano is passed on now, but I just think it's such a beautiful thing that as much as I've known you for about 25 years, I never knew at the very beginning it was Uncle Opiano that came to you to talk to you about a place, an accommodation where the station could be located. Now, how well did you know Opiano at the time before he came to talk to you? This city, everybody is a paddy. Even the chief is a paddy. So you came in and then you found Opiano and he was with a journalist and so on and so forth. So you become part of it. And then I was fortunate enough to have chaired GBC. So at a point in time, I got to know his wife and his son at the time. We even went to his house before he finally resigned from GBC to join Skyy. And even when he was at GBC, Opiano had a following, because of the way he spoke. He was a typical Sekondi-Takoradi boy, So he had a following, and he took that following into Skyy. It wasn't just a journalist who came from somewhere and landed. No. Opiano was part of the Sekondi-Takoradi landscape. So it was easy for him when he moved to Skyy to bring... and then they wanted Mr. Nkumsa's house. There's a house quite close here, but Mr. Nkumsa at that time didn't want to give it out. So that's why they moved. So we started searching for a place before we then heard they had gotten a place in Takoradi. Willie was unknown to me, bright-eyed young man, and then his brother, and I got to know them. In that small place. I was just going to ask, what was your impression of that Wilson Arthur, the very young man that he was at that time? And we kind of later on got to know that he was simply an ideas-driven young man.
He had that, and then if you look at some of the programs Skyy did, of course it promoted Skyy, etc. Why shouldn't it promote them? But they did the Western Region Personality of the Year Award. They did. Skyy brought people in to talk about regional development. Probably, and I've always asserted this, that if Wilson Arthur had not identified himself later, much later, I think maybe 15 years later, due to the events in Ghana with a particular party. He was one of the most powerful figures in the region, if not the most, because of the way, the people's attitude to Skyy, that this is our radio station, before the others came in. Skyy became the mother of all in fact, the young men that you find in other radio stations almost invariably were trained or groomed in Skyy. But the most important thing was that Skyy became our radio station. And so when you talk about, now we talk about other radio stations, but whenever anything, you would ask yourself, Skyy and Skyy Akana, Skyy became the what should I say, the where we saw our truth emanating from, where we saw our concerns emanating from.
So, Nana Kobina Nketsia V, here I am as a young man still, having known you for 25 years, and you have this attitude where you are almost like an ordinary person. You have no airs, and you are not afraid to go anywhere or practically say anything, especially when you believe in it and you believe it helps the community develop. Skyy became like a mirror in which, as you describe, we see ourselves. And the kind of person I saw, but for Skyy, I wouldn't know you the way I do. And you made yourself so available to the people, to Skyy, as part of your service to the community. And I'm trying to understand how the way you supported Skyy, how that goes to the way you see yourself and serve your people and decide to be so close to the people. We see you as a friend, someone trustworthy, someone we can come to any day for any advice and for inspiration.
No, let's put it this way. Skyy was an agent of development. It was a profit-making thing, but it was an agent of community development, the city's development, and among other things. And so whatever it is, one had to put his cloth down and then support this particular enterprise, or mainly because of what it tried to do. It meant a lot to some of us. So that was the thing. So we had to support Skyy. And fortunately, it did not let us down. If it did, maybe later. But at that time, it did not let us down. I was very fortunate, much as I'm a chief. I've also had quite an experience. I'd had quite experience in life, and then my education and so on. How do you make it accessible if you then keep away from the people? But at the same time, too, once you become a chief and you're not a media person, you're not a politician, you also then give room for people to attack you, and they would put aside what you said. Instead of attacking what you said, they find a way to come around and attack your person instead of your words. So these were all things you consider. Unfortunately, I think that the Skyy hosts, the presenters or the host, they were quite kind. If somebody came in when you were on and they came in with something quite obnoxious, they would find a way of cutting the person off. So it gave you a measure of security when you came to the Skyy station, that the person who maybe has a personal grouse, not with what you're going to say, because who doesn't want to listen to ideas, and who doesn't want whatever he said to be analyzed to see his work? That is what Chief Tese is about. And the chief hardly ever speaks. But then we had to come out and say this. There was a friend of mine, talking about Skyy, who became your friend, this gentleman from England.
Martin
Hyle.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember that much as I knew a lot about the railways, it was Martin Hyle on Skyy that made me understand and ask myself, so why have we killed the railways? And if the railways had a spirit, it was through Skyy that the spirit came back into me. It was easy to talk about it, but then it became quite a thing that, look, this country cannot move forward without the railways. We need to restore the railways. besides the fact that this city was created or based on two economic legs. One was the railways and the other one was the harbors. That's how the city emerged, the Sekondi-Takoradi as a city. So as soon as you kill the railways, you kill part of the spirit of the city. As soon as you kill the harbor. And you can see that taking the harbor to Accra for certain things really affected the city. And of course, the death of the railways, but it's coming back. The death of the railways also saw the death of the industrial, Sekondi-Takoradi as an industrial hub. Now people don't talk about industry again and so on and so forth. Sekondi-Takoradi is looking for the means of existence. But this used to be the industrial hub of the country. And we haven't continued, we haven't followed up, we haven't built on the foundations that we came to meet as a young nation, So other places are emerging. Temas emerged. I think the other day I heard the Minister for Trade and Industry say they are going to Kumasi, and I was laughing quietly. And I asked myself, on what national planning is this? What about Sekondi-Takoradi? So these are things that I remember, but there are thoughts that have developed over time, and Skyy made a huge contribution to even becoming better informed, much as I also tried to share the knowledge of what I knew.
And that's exactly what I mean. And that's exactly what I mean, that obviously Skyy was an agent of development. And from my memory, you were such a strong partner in being an agent of development. And you were almost, first of all, a teacher, where you use the platform to reach your people, to teach, to inspire, to help, to educate. And it brought back memories. When I first ran into you, I didn't know at the time, I believe it was in 2001, 7 days after the African Union was formed. And on that particular program, and you were on, I was host, you were on with Tony Osei and Captain Soul. And it was such a beautiful discussion that opened the eyes of people. And whereas we were talking about Africa, you emphasized the fact that the development had to start from us, in that small community for it to go everywhere else. And that is how, to me, your image as a leader was defined, where your support for Skyy Power was so strong because you saw it as a tool to help people. And 2.5 decades down the line, it is just beautiful to look back and see what was accomplished.
Now that you're saying this, you reminded me about something that happened during the course of that particular interview. I heard there were some people looking for me. I said, who are these people? When I got out and I met some people from the community, including some African Americans, and then they said they heard the radio talk and couldn't believe that there was a Ghanaian, and moreover a chief, who was saying the kind of things that I said. And so they left whatever they were doing to come to the radio station to meet me. I'm sure I've never told you about that before.
No.
But it was very interesting. I said, God, what did I say wrong? That these people, are they coming to beat me? Are they coming to say something negative about? Then they said, no. They were just very happy. I always remember that one. And I've made some lifelong friends, who keep, even though the African Americans have returned to America for certain reasons. They had wanted to settle, but they felt very, very comfortable around me, together with certain Ghanaians. That particular interview, I've even forgotten when it was, but that is how I got to know them.
I am able to estimate the day. I can tell the date only because in my introduction, I said 7 days ago, the African leaders made a decision to form the African Union. And therefore, I could just go back in time and say what was the date and go, and it was fascinating. And Nana, and I can't say it enough, but you never came across as someone with the authority you have to lord it over anyone. In fact, I remember in one of your programs saying that in our local languages, there is no word for we only have a word for leader, not ruler. So to me as a young man, you were doing the things you were saying. You had no idea what effect it was having, but you were turning my whole brain around together with your fellow panelist, Tony Osei-Gyesi, and that Captain Sogu, who has a wealth of life experience. So when the three of you came together, and you did it on many occasions, on many different topics, I was in awe of all of you, but in a special way for you, because you came with the gravitas of a weighty traditional office, but it's almost as if you were willing to leave that at the door and come in with your brain to say, hey, can you see the picture?
I see, Philip. Thank you very much. This is quite an honor. I hope that I continue in that fashion. But I saw you as a very bright young man, bright-eyed young man like Willie himself, also very bright, probing, and wanting to know more. You were quite a good host, and hosts usually bring the best out of you. So this is the thing. You get some hosts who will sit on their programs and they'll talk 45 minutes if you have to stay there for 1 hour with your own views. So you watch them and you're quiet and you look at them. But with you, because I think that was also about the periods that sometimes, remember that I used to have press soirees and so on and so forth in that period. Yeah, and they would say, but we need some news. And I said, no, I didn't. I wanted us to come together so that our minds would gel, as journalists, about how to raise the community's concern to Accra, So these are part of it. I mean, if we talk about democracy, there's no place that has better democracy than the African areas. And it starts from the community. But unfortunately, we have this so-called imposed democracy from Accra. And at the end of the day, the community's consensus building and so on, is then thrown into the sea and rather creates conflicts. And that's what we experience. And I think that's part of the problem Skyy had when it then moved in, when the ownership moved in a partisan manner. It became like Fox did in America. So, but at one time it was all embracing, whether it was NDC, whether it was MPP, whether it was CP. We all saw Skyy as our radio station. But as soon as he moved that way, and as a chief, you can't afford to move in any party. It's a no. You are the father of all. So that particular view must be constantly and consistently maintained. As soon as a chief joins a party, he's killed the stool. The stool wasn't made for factionalism, except it's a national fight, just as my uncle did during the independence struggle, and so on and so forth. He joined CPP because that was the movement of his people at the time. So these are the things that there are, and we have to look at them dispassionately.
And
it's part of our growth. And if Sekondi-Takoradi has become, even grown to be what it is today, it is suffering. We know why it is suffering. The Western region as a whole is suffering. But we also appreciate the fact that it could have been worse if it went for a station, most especially Skyy FM. Most especially, Skyy FM. Skyy did Snatha and his band of workers. They did a yeoman's job for this city. And in the space of time, when we get to this period, we can't help but mention Skyy. Definitely, it helped with the growth, the sustenance of the city.
And in talking about that further, I'll just try to paint this picture. When you see the start of a construction, a building, you will see first the foundation. Now, the foundation doesn't give you the full picture, but it gives you an idea where it is going. But when there is some sort of completion of that project, you can tell whether it followed the pattern of the foundation or not. And I say, giving your contribution, what Skyy did, what it stood for, it appears there's a lot of unfinished work. You look at the foundation, you look at how it all started, where it is now, it doesn't seem like it is supposed to be where it's supposed to be. There is an unfinished business.
Just like everything. Yeah, just like everything. Just like Ghana, just like where you were in Australia. The future is always unknown. But we need to go back into the past to find the blueprints, rethink them, and find how to use it for the future. The past is gone, but it offers huge lessons. Skyy's past has gone, but it offers huge lessons for us to look at and see what we can do with those lessons with respect to the future, not just of Skyy itself, but of the media within the cityscape, and within our lives. And so these are all things that we can look at and make the best out of it for our own future. And I believe we can. As Obama says, yes, we can. And the foundation was good. But Ghana was good. Nkrumah started off well. So somewhere along the line, we went into our own misunderstanding. And we are now paying a price. But are we learning from it? So Skyy can do the same. The city can do the same. So that is it. I believe that, take America, for whatever fault they have, the man who came in, a chief, you get to calling everybody a young man. Biden, who came in, is trying to restore things. I'm sure they are rethinking America. Europe is rethinking Europe. So we need to also rethink what can we learn from the past, and so on and so forth. What was Skyy's contribution? What happened to Skyy? Can we learn from it? And it's not just an example for Skyy alone, but for all the stations within Sekondi-Takoradi. There are people that I've met. They tell me they knew me, and I ask them, "How come?" They say, "Nana, we worked at Skyy," but they now have their own radio stations or working with other radio stations, and they feel that comfortable, that they were Skyy trained, and that's quite a lot. In fact, quite a number of the guys in the media within Sekondi-Takoradi talk about Skyy. Skyy picked up CK Man, and even in death, blew up CK Man's music and so on and so forth. I don't know about Skyy's association with Kofi Kinata, but it's more of CK Man that I know that Skyy took a very special interest in him, and his music, outlives time, because Skyy had the production units at a point, and quite a number of young boys were being groomed through there. So,
see, Nana, this is exactly what I mean by who you are, right? You notice what Skyy has done with CK Man, possibly with Kofi Kinata, and I have a story to share with you from a young lady called Fatih Shaibu Ali. She still works in the media in Accra. She came to work at Skyy. So I spoke to her. I interviewed her for this project and asked her, how did she become part of Skyy? She said, but for you, she wouldn't have worked at Skyy. So I asked her to tell me the details. She said, well, she was a young journalist in Cape Coast, met you at a forum, and she was moved by the points you put across. So she decided to have an interview with you after the forum. And then after that, you were impressed by her ability. And then she said to you that, well, she's just a national service, someone like that. And then you suggested she goes and apply for a job at Skyy, and that you have no influence, but you can recommend her. And then that's where it ends. And she has to do the rest of the work for herself. And she said because of that, she found the courage to apply to Skyy instead of some other radio stations, because she felt like she wasn't good enough for Skyy. Well, And I said, that's one life that's been touched there by Nana Kobina Nketsia, who is not even aware of it. And I said to Fati, when I speak to you, I'll tell you what you did for her. And she probably hasn't had a chance to speak to you directly about it.
I remember the young lady. I remember her way back.
Yes.
But that is where it ends. I see. Very also somebody who wanted to do something with her life.
And it doesn't
I think Skyy gave her the opportunity.
Exactly. And that one-time meeting at a forum where she interviewed you and you gave her the encouragement has helped her a great deal. You were mentioning Kofi Kinata. I have interviewed Kofi Kinata for this project only because he says he got inspired a lot by Skyy, because when Skyy came, he was only 6 or 7 years old, and in his parents' home, he was constantly listening to Skyy, the good music they played, Uncle Opia waking up the children at dawn, and all of these things that Skyy were doing, the developmental programs and all, and it's one of the things that inspired him a great deal, you know. And so in the end, it just shows what Skyy has done and how you were there to support Skyy. In fact, once I have finished speaking with you, you would have become the 62nd person I have interviewed for this project. And a few people say, are you doing this for Wilson Arthur? And I'm thinking, actually, what the experiment in Sekondi-Takoradi, sure, dreamed and envisioned by Wilson, has gone way beyond Wilson. And if we didn't do what we can to try to tell the story, at least an aspect of it, for people to learn from it, to capture the voices of people who played a part. Because I think about it and I go like, Uncle Opia is dead. Mr. Mold is dead. Yeah. Another wonderful workmate, Essikado, has passed on. And you think, how long...
Essikado is gone on. I don't even know.
Well,
I see.
Essikado passed on, taken by cancer. And you think, how long should we stand aside and see our fellows who were part of this dream and this work keep passing on without bringing their story to the table so that it becomes a kind of societal light that will continue to shine even when they are not here to talk about it for themselves. And that is why I would have kept chasing you for the next 2 years to talk to you.
People went on Skyy. You know, usually when you go, sometimes they give you transport money and all this. But a lot of people went on Skyy because they wanted to make a contribution. They wanted their views heard. It wasn't about, because Skyy virtually had nothing. I mean, it was living from hand to mouth, you know, with the workers and so on and so forth. So Skyy was virtually scrambling for and scraping for existence. So how do you then put out lavish money for people to entice them to come in? So that was it. But then it came to stand on its feet. And I remember, now that you're saying this, there was a recording studio, but at that time you were gone. And Willie, I think he spoke to somebody using my name and so on. So the person then decided to invest in me. But the investments went to Skyy. Mm-hmm. So even though the film was in me, it went into Skyy to create a recording studio, you know, and so on and so forth. And now that you're saying this, I just remembered that those were films that because you knew that Skyy was a community, how to bring young people up and so on and so forth, show their talents. And there were brilliant ideas that they had. And sometimes one gets saddened that we have allowed party politics to destroy what Skyy, because it was a unifier, a big unifier, both for NDC and NPP. It was the people's voice in the Western region. You know, it wasn't a partisan voice. So that's how Skyy was. And just as Kofi may have told you,
people did not listen to GBC alone. What's the name of Twin City Radio? It was all Skyy. It was all Skyy. Wherever you went, it was Skyy. And then when he moved into the central region too, as I taught and lived in Cape Coast, it was all about Skyy. People were trying to to get their stations, their frequency to get into Skyy, and so on and so forth. If Skyy probably had been very, very aggressive, it would have taken over, from Mankesim to Sekondi-Takoradi. And then, unfortunately for the Western region, GBC had a station in Wenchi, in Sekondi also, linked to Kumasi. Yeah. And then the Sekondi-Takoradi. So we also did not have a radio station that unified us. But Skyy was seen by the whole region, the chiefs and so on, as this is our station. It became the station of the region, not GBC. It's quite interesting. But Skyy meant something to the region, meant something. And then you had the football news, both Azakas and Wise, which were seen as the major regional team, and you need these kind of things to unite you, So these Wise and Azakas became, much as they were down, but they also brought they were unifiers. They brought us together, and so on and so forth. So these were things that Skyy did. They became the unifying spirit of the city. And and unity is the first point of development. And then after that, the discussions and the planning and so on and so forth was the best piece of education, best tool to educate the people about themselves, about what they have and their place within the Ghanaian society and polity. So that was it.
In the last few weeks, I have spoken to two outstanding people, Paul Ansah, who went on to become Director General of the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. The other one was Martin Howes. And they both remember you with a lot of respect, with your contribution. And Martin Howes in particular couldn't believe he's now 74 years and he had returned to England when I spoke to him. And he speaks about you and your contribution and what you stood for the people as a leader with such fondness. And of course, I couldn't help but have it, continue playing in my mind because I saw the role you played. In fact, I was privileged when he said that I introduced you and him, and I thought, well, what did I do to deserve the privilege?
Well, I've forgotten all these things, Philip. I've forgotten all these things. But Martin and I became very good friends. He was one of the best people giving me pieces of advice here and there. And as a chief, you need as much rich advice as you can, and the best of the best. So that's quite interesting. That's quite interesting. Very interesting.
So to conclude, the journey never ends, but you want it to be as experiential and pleasant and something that is an experience in teaching or learning as much as possible. What would you say then that this otherwise commercial enterprise called Skyy, what would you say is its legacy moving forward a quarter of a century later?
Wow. Well, it came in at a very good time as part of our history. And just like I said, became the mouthpiece of the region, of the whole Western region. Skyy brought us all together. At the same time, too, it became a place that educated us, informed us, and also voiced out, like I said, the mouthpiece of the region. And Skyy was the Western region, and the Western region was Skyy. No politician could be higher than Skyy. Skyy was the Western region, and the Western region was Skyy at a point in time. And that's what it became. So if we survived as a region, in spite of the division, we see ourselves as one. And our survival as a region is seen that way. too. You see that Sekondi-Takoradi is probably the most pan-Africanist city you will find in West Africa. And Skyy carried on. It wasn't about Nzema, it wasn't about Ahanta. It was just about the people who lived here, who took this place as their home, who felt they belonged. So long as you were part of the Western region, Skyy saw you as part of it. It wasn't that I'm from here, he's from there, those kind of infantile thinking. Skyy, in a way, was a pan-Africanist station. And the guys who worked in there, they came from diverse parts of the country. And they spoke as if they belonged to the Western region. Some even came to live here. We're not born here, but they would tell you that, oh, Skyy, we are Western. It was healthy hearing those kind of things. So Skyy carried on the pan-Africanist spirit of the city and helped the city stand on its feet. As you say, the future is ahead of us. Today is a tree planting day in Ghana. And you see, by the time some of the trees grow, some of us will be dead. That is offer shade to those who come after us. So Skyy planted a seed, and that seed, we need to go back to it, rethink it, and use it and water it for our future.
Words of a wise man, no question about it, Nana. I really, really appreciate your time this morning. And I keep telling my colleagues that I am not promising to write a book, but I'm promising to do my very best because it's a story worth telling, a story worth preserving. So if it became possible and successful, it is because you have helped with your time. But knowing as well that you've been helping with a project like this for the better part of 25 years. Thank you very much, Nana.
Thank you. And I wish you the very best.